We're back for another exciting episode. Today is Friday, so that is the final exciting episode for the week. Uh, I have here a live nude model in the form of a photograph on my secondary computer. Um, she's in kind of an interesting pose, you'll see, um, but I'm going to kind of it's a technique described as enveloping. Um, Stellar's here. Good, I'm on. Um, it's called enveloping, and it's because rather than try to work out the figure, I'm really just trying to say the figure that I want to draw goes in this space right here, and then I'm going to try to block in the figure. And a particular reason for wanting to do that, a lot of times as you draw the figure, um, it starts to drift on you. It starts to go outside the area that you thought it was going to occupy. Maybe start making it taller or wider, and Sharon says, "Well, it's a good thing I'm not at work." Yeah, it's still not safe for work. I'm sorry. It's never safe, never. And yeah, so sometimes as you're drawing, um, the figure gets bigger than you expected it to, and you run the feet off the page, or if they've got an arm extended, you run the arm off the page, or something like that. And if you know that really want to not do that on this one, then this this sort of amoeba shape that says whatever happens, everything is contained within this shape, with one exception. Um, but you just come up with a little shape right there and say, okay, keeping everything inside. It kind of tells your brain, no, I don't have this whole sheet of paper to mess with. I've only got this much, you know, and it tells your brain to behave. and and so it's one way to kind of deal with that. You keep it under control. And sometimes you can screw up and still run the feet right out the bottom of your envelope, which I'm about to do right here, but it's not too tragic. So she's down on one knee. She's got the other knee up, and she's definitely tilted over. Maybe not as tilted as I'm making here because I'm off center. Um, but she's definitely kind of off balanced, or seems to be off balanced. And the model actually did this pose and held it for a considerable length of time, 10 minutes at least, something like that, which was impressive because it's a difficult thing to do. But she was good. This arm I knew was going to come outside of my envelope, but that's not bad as long as the rest of the figure stayed in that little blob that I made. Recognizing that her fingertip in the photograph, that fingertip ends about level with the top of her head. And the edge of her thumb is about level with her knee. Okay, so that puts more restrictions on my brain and says, don't go wandering all over this piece of paper, putting your hand way the hell out here. You've got a strict area to work in, and you've got to keep it in there. So I'm going to keep that thumb right there. I'm going to move this hand over here. This probably means force that arm down a little bit and shorten the upper arm a little because it is in perspective as it moves away from you. And this is all, it's not just masochistic. It's helps you get the drawing under control. Because in particular, an action drawing, so you can get out of control just drawing somebody sitting there looking dull, going. You can just wander. You start making the leg way bigger than it's supposed to be, or something, and you just go crazy. Um, John says, I think it's because you need room for the word pizza. Oh, you gave away the end. Dang it. Yeah, I need to write pizza across there. So she goes, oh, no, the pizza. So yeah, that's what it's going to be. And just a seated figure, it can be easy to lose your grip and have the legs too long, or to start. You've got the head and the arms in scale, but then as you start focusing down here and you're just focusing on the leg and you're not comparing it to the head and the arms, you start drawing the legs just massive, and then and that was just in a passive pose. It's 10 times harder in an action pose. It's just really easy to wander off, and plus, when you are leaving a room so that you can put something else in the background, like a pizza sign, it matters. You've got to keep this figure under control and say she can't take up any more space than this because I need that space for something else. And so, even though she's the star of the show, I've got to have room for the show in there. So, I've got to have room for something else. I've just very lightly wipe that down. Just softly. If I get real aggressive, I can get rid of a lot more of those lines, but I don't want to. I want to leave a ghost in there that I can trace over. And then I'll start. Hands are greasy. Start drawing. That wasn't drawing before. That was getting ready to draw. This is drawing. Lots of people will tell you there are no outlines in nature. Don't draw outlines. You have my permission to ignore them. If you're going for realism and your picture ends up being nothing but outlines, then you've got a problem. But it is a good way to define the area of the figure. How wide is that arm? What's the general contours of this breast? And stuff. You can show that in lines. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot that's right with that. I'm just going to draw right through her other arm. I know that arm's there. I'll come back and deal with that. But moment. You draw right through it, keep going. Hi, Sissy. Sissy's here. I missed the talk about pizza. Yeah, John said, I was talking about leaving all this space here because I needed that for something else to be happening. And John said, you're going to put a pizza sign back there because that's what I do. Sissy says, your work especially would be weird without outlines. Yes, it would. Uh, but I'm going to, I will eventually, I think, depend more on shadows to define the shapes. Um, but I do, generally speaking, start with, well, I almost always start with this fine charcoal outline. It's become a formula for me. It's uh, not necessarily the only way to start, but I get there and I get there pretty quick. I like moving quickly. I get bored with things if I have to linger on them very long. I just want to jump ahead. Both a strength and a weakness. Kind of means that I get to the end faster than I should have and with a lot less refinement than something could have. You know, and I may wind up going, oh, I drew that arm in the wrong place and have to erase it, redo it. Whereas if I had been slow and careful, I wouldn't have to do that and I wouldn't have to mess up my paper. And that's true. Generally speaking, I don't care. She's looking away, so you don't really see the contours of her lips and her nose. Uh, I mean, they're out in front of this cheek, but you pretty much want to draw that cheek first, and then her brow and her forehead. Make sure you know where the head goes. I mean, I know it's covered in hair, but you kind of got to find it, locate it. Her hairline is going to be different for lots of people. It's also yours to make up at this point and say, I like everything about her but her hairdo, so I need to change that. If you wanted to. I think she's fine. So her nose and her lips, it's kind of like when you see a hill and then there's some other hills poking up behind it. So you've got this hill that's formed by her cheek, and then there's another hill formed by the nose and another couple of hills formed by the lips, just kind of sticking out from behind it. Sharon says, but there are horizons and we've got to represent them somehow. We're talking about lines still. Um, and newsprint is made to be messed up. That is definitely true. It's because coloring books have lines. that you are hypothetically supposed to stay within, and rules are rules. Yes, I've told a story before of I was out painting a sign, and I was pretty close to finished. It was at a restaurant, and there was a guy who had seen me as he went in, and then he saw me when he came out, and was impressed by how quickly I had done what I'd done. But he came up and he looked closely at the sign, and he said, "How did you get the color so cleanly inside the lines?" And I said, "That's easy. I did the lines last." Which in a window splash is exactly what you do. You knock in all these big shapes and colors, and then you go in with the outlines and block everything, and then it looks very clean. And that surprised him so much he literally fell on his butt. He fell down. It was kind of scary because there was this big nasty, like a, what's the big cactus that looks like it'll kill you? It's got leaves in it. Like a gabi. Uh, Anyways, he almost fell on that, and so he fell down, and well, this was a location that I did multiple times. So he came back another time that I was painting there, and he says, "Hey, you remember me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do, because you fell down." And he said something I've never quite understood, and if I was smarter, I could just make something up, but I don't know enough to even make something up. But it was something about um, he worked for a marketing firm or a sales firm of some sort, and they were making tons of money, but somehow missing deadlines and missing their goals. It's like at the beginning of the quarter or the beginning of whatever, they would say, "Here are the things we want to accomplish." Failed on all of them and still made millions of dollars because maybe lost that client but gained two other clients, or something. And so um, the money was good and the morale was terrible. People were being punished for their failures and stuff like that. And anyways, my line about putting the outlines in last uh, got him rethinking his whole corporate structure, and not his corporate structure, but his business structure. And they did something different. They were able to award people for, they said, we're gonna set the definitions, set our scope after the job is over or something. Um, like I say, I don't actually understand it, but whatever it was he did, uh, using that event as a sort of an allegorical thing, it worked for him, and it worked for the business, and you know they were already making money. I didn't change that, but it helped them to not lose employees who were doing a good job and that sort of thing. And I was like, happy to be of service. You can make the check payable to Gilly. I didn't say that. Maybe I should have. I do think about that when somebody says, because people would come up to me and ask me, how did you do this? What kind of paint did you use? Where do you buy that? How much does that cost? How much do you charge? And I just tell them. And sometimes people would say, dude, you shouldn't give away your secrets. You shouldn't give away this information. Let them, they're going to go out and start a sign painting business and undercut you. You should let them figure all that stuff out on their own. And I just thought, after having a couple experiences like sort of like that one with the guy and his sales team or whatever, it's like where this person is going to go with this information is so far beyond my own imagination that it's not even funny. And so um, it's I'm risking nothing. He's not gonna quit his job and become a sign painter. He's just going to use this information in some other way. And even if he did become a sign painter, the odds of him sticking to it are like, I don't know, 1 in 50. And at the time, the market could have used 50 more guys, So I would have to give my secrets away to thousands of people before I found myself, uh, you know, bumping into somebody. Anyway, did no harm to give away my secrets. All right, so I did all that to come up with a girl. I made a joke in class and said, that's a perfect pose of a girl cowering away from a pterodactyl that's about to attack her. And she said, that's exactly what I had in mind. And I don't know if she was being serious or not, but she is, if possible, because she's that type, that fantasy prone type. You know those fantasy people. She's one of those. So so I thought, one of these days I'm gonna draw that picture. It was one of those occasions where I was sitting over here and the model was here, and I took the camera and I went around and click, 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 click. I took a bunch of pictures, and I told myself one of these days I'm gonna draw this girl doing this, and I'm gonna draw a pterodactyl uh, coming in. So pterodactyl coming in. Here we go. Now the real question, I guess, is how how big to make the pterodactyl. How big is your pterodactyl? I'm tired of being asked that question all the time. You're grasping about now that I'm not really an expert on pterodactyl anatomy. That's okay. I was about to draw his legs, tucked naturally behind him like a bird in flight. Um, but no, it's going to be more exciting than that. So it's going to be claws extended. How many foot claws does a pterodactyl have? I don't know. I do know this, but you probably knew this. Um, they've got an arm like our arm, okay, and then a bat. I'll do this hand. A bat has all 5 fingers, and so when his his wing has an exposed thumb, and then the rest of the wing is webbing between very long fingers. So you've got 4 separations there in a bat's wings. Pterodactyl, you have no separations in his wings. He's got, I think, exposed 2 fingers and a thumb, and then the other 2 fingers are extremely long and fused together and heavier than the rest of his hand, and they go down to the tips. So we've got 2 fingers and a thumb, finger and a finger, and then the other 2 fingers go all the way down here, and that's what supports that whole wing. So this is his arm. Like thusly, and then it's just membrane, skin that goes down to somewhere further back on his body. So that at least is the beginnings of a pterodactyl. And speaking of lines and shadows, right now I've wiped her down to the point where she's kind of soft and a little bit blurry. And because I was making things up, I relied more on outline on this guy than I did on her. And so the lines are stronger, and he actually looks like he's maybe even in front of her, farther forward. Um, and I didn't draw him in such a way as he, as like the hand overlapped him, which actually would have been a good idea to have done that, because that makes it necessarily object in front, objects behind. Were I to paint it, I would make darn sure that uh, he was less sharply in focus than her, and that would throw him deeper into the background. Right now I'm going to do, this is my atmosphere stick. Put some atmosphere in there. Let's see. John says pterodactyl equals breathing hang glider. I just looked at the pictures. Cool. I'm going to have to go look at some pictures. I'm beginning to think, Sharon says, I'm beginning to think pterodactyls are still with us in the form of cassowaries. Those are definitely some ugly, vicious little beasties. We drew a cassowary in our in our Zoom thing, one of the earlier Zoom things. That's fun. I don't know if I ever shared mine. I gave mine hands later on. Because why not? Sometimes you do stuff like this and you've got your model who's got actual light and shadow and you've got a photograph of her. And this guy you've made up and you're not certain if you've done the lighting right. Sharon says, bless you, Stellar, because you could hear Stellar sneezing in the background. Yes, neither of us are very delicate sneezers. We're not the little people. Uh, we didn't get it from each other, I don't think. We were both like that. But if I were really worried about this, I would either go buy a toy pterodactyl, which appeals to me greatly, or sculpt one out of clay, which also appeals to me, and set it up with a desk lamp or something. Set up a little mannequin with the same under the same lighting until the mannequin matches that shadow, and then that way I know the shading on the pterodactyl will match as well. And uh, and so if you're really serious, you can do that. And Sharon says they still have that horn thing. Yeah, that thing back there. Oh, cassowaries, you mean? Yeah, yeah, they do. They do. When we went to the dinosaur exhibit that they had at the zoo a couple years ago, they had a pterodactyl-like creature. Um, and my God, it was gigantic. It was way bigger than I thought they ever got. And apparently, they thought yes, it could fly. It wasn't earthbound. And yeah, it was amazing and really ugly. And I don't know how much of that is speculation and how much is known for sure. Uh, get a sneeze, you might want to make it worthwhile. Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of disgusting when I'm sneezing. If I have an allergy, if I have it kind of bad and I know I'm going to be sneezing, I stay home. Guess I'm not good company. If I were not on video right now, I would be looking up pictures of pterodactyls and drawing this probably a little bit more accurately than what I'm doing. Um, for example, I don't know, they might have a flap of skin like that, or they might not. I don't know that. Also, they definitely would curve. And sometimes when you're drawing something like that, you're like, well, this one wing goes this way and one wing goes this way. And you'll see that this one's much longer than this one. So either I'm going to run this off the paper to make it longer, or the other thing I could do is curl it inwards. And that gives it a much nicer sense of dimension. You know that this thing has two sides. So now when I put the sunlight on it, really going to light up that side. Keep this side in shadow. However, it's going to be stretched very thin membrane, so the sunlight's going to be shining through his wing out here somewhere. Like thusly. So, gives us some depth and dimension. John says skin membrane to the hip like a flying squirrel. So I put it a little too low. I got it a little past his butt. Yeah, I can fix that. Fix that. This thing will help me erase that. And I don't know if I'm going to make this girl a cave girl or just assume she's in the same world with Ned, etc. And they have pterodactyls there. That would be fun. Putting pterodactyls in Ned's world is a good idea. It's too safe where he lives so far. There are some complications. And we were talking about outlines earlier. And before I let it go completely, I just read a book about outlines. It's about story outlines, as in how to write them. And it was a small, cheap book that I thought it might give me a different perspective on this, and on the book that I'm putting together of all my drawings and stuff like that. And I'll have to tell you, I just finished it, and I'll have to let you know if it's given me anything food for thought. I'm not going to be a writer, but in a way, in an allegorical sense, it works with what I do because that little envelope that I made is like a structure, a pre-made structure that you say, look, don't drift from this, or the whole thing will stop making sense. And your story outline is that same kind of thing. It's just like encapsulate what it is you want to talk about, and all these other ideas are great. Write them down, put them someplace else, but don't wander off because then you're going to write the next great American novel that nobody wants to read. I think it was Mark Twain who said a classic is a book that everyone wants to have read, but nobody really wants to read. Um, so yeah, there's the great novels, and then there's stuff people actually want to read. And the book was about stuff you actually want to read because it's fun. So yeah, I like that. That's one of my more planned out, self-consciously illustrative type of things, and I like it because I started drawing her with every intention of putting a pterodactyl in the sky. Uh, I snapped the photograph with every intention of putting a pterodactyl in the sky. Uh, so yeah, it's pretty cool. And there we are. It is Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend. Join us, if you will, on Zoom at 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I will post the link on my page. Stella usually posts it on her page as well. And we draw a little and we talk a lot. And that's okay. And it's fun. So join us and hang out, draw if you feel like it, or just chat. And we'll see you then. And otherwise, I'll see you Monday at 3 o'clock, unless I'm doing something else. I don't know. Could happen. Bye bye.